All right, we want to welcome all of you to our candidate forum for the May 2025 City Council election, sponsored by the Justice League of One Church. I am Larry Poole, one of the pastors here at church, pastor over social justice and seniors ministry. We also have with us Pastor Danny Young, who is our church administrative pastor. Thought I saw Roberson here. But anyway, the members of our Justice League, we have been doing a lot over the past few years. We are sponsoring our third annual Juneteenth celebration, and we encourage all of you to come and be a part of that because it is for the community. And would the members of the Justice League raise your hands so everybody can see who these wonderful ladies are? And I've got a great team, and they do an awful lot of work. City council elections are one of the most important elections that we partake in. You know, I've been teaching American history and political science for 55 years. And I've always told my students that the elections that have the greatest impact on their day-to-day life is not what happens in Austin, though that is important, not what happens in Washington, that's important, but in your day-to-day life, as far as your streets and your water and your sewer and your police and your fire and your zoning, those are all done by the local government. Now, sadly, the United States has one of the lowest voter turnouts, even in our national election. We generally have about 2/3 of our eligible voters vote in national elections. Now, as bad as that is, in local elections, it's almost always less than 10%. And, you know, people complain about their city taxes, their city services, the potholes in their street, and the response of the fire or the police or the ambulance. And if they ever complain that to me, I always ask, did you vote? And if they said, well, no, and I say then, well, you probably ought to just keep your mouth shut. Okay? It's extremely important. So let me encourage you not only to vote, but to encourage everyone you know who is a registered voter in Midlothian to go out and vote in our local election. And we are very thankful for the three candidates who are here. Mr. Gardner hopefully will get here. But you have to realize that we have what is called a city council, city manager form of government. Now, if you were in my history class, I'd give you the full history of how that came about, but you're not. But the city council, city manager form of government is where the citizens elect a city council, usually volunteers, who then hire a city manager who runs the day-to-day operation of the city. And in cities like ours, these are nonpartisan. These three individuals are here not running as a partisan political candidate, but as people who are willing to volunteer their time and their effort to make our city a better place to live. And so we need to be thankful for their willingness to do that. And the candidates we have are Anna Hammond, Valencia Daniels, and Clark Wycliffe. And we're so thankful that they are here. Now, the candidates are going to have a time to introduce themselves, tell about who they are, a little bit about their personal history. Then they will have some additional time after that phase is done to talk about what they see as the main issues of the city and what they plan to do about it. And then after that, we will have questions from you. But if you want to ask a question, we're going to ask that you submit it in writing. And we have some forms back here, and we have pens. And so if you want to ask a question, At any point, just raise your hand. We'll get you a form, get you a pen, and we'll take it up, and one of the members of the Justice League will read the question. You can direct your question to a specific candidate. You can direct your questions to a specific candidate or to all the candidates in general. Okay? So again, we are thankful that you are here, and we want to remember that, the Apostle Paul wrote to the church at Corinth in his first letter and said, let all things be done in order and in decency. And so we want to make sure that we are respectful and that we honor these candidates and their willingness to serve. But before we begin, they've already drawn their numbers as to who's going to go first, second, and third. But before we begin, we're going to have a word of prayer. Because if you come into one church, for whatever reason, we're going to pray. Because our church follows what God says. My house shall be known as a house of prayer. Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the opportunity that we have tonight to hear from these candidates who are willingly giving up of their time and their efforts to serve the citizens of our community. Lord, I am thankful for Valencia and Anna and for Clark and their willingness to serve. And Lord, we ask your blessings on each one of them, that you watch over them, you protect them, you guide them. Not only as they are candidates, but if they are elected as they serve. And Lord, that they will keep in mind that to follow the example that Christ set when he came and said, I did not come to be served, but to serve. And we are so thankful that these individuals are willing to do that. Lord, we give you all the honor and all the glory and all the praise. In Christ's name, amen. Okay, each candidate is going to spend 3 to 5 minutes telling you who they are, a little bit about their history and their background. And then after each candidate has the time to do that, then they will spend another 8 to 10 minutes describing what they see are the major issues in our city and what they plan to do about it. When that is over, that'll be the time for questions. And I think Mr. Clark Wycliffe, round of applause, is going first. I think Valencia, you drew number 2, Miss Valencia Daniels. And Miss Anna Hammond, all right, is third. And again, I know all 3 of these. They are good, godly people, and I'm just very, very thankful that their willingness to come out and to be a part of the first candidate forum. We're making history. But let me do some introductions. Dr. Demetrius McClendon is our senior pastor. Brother Danny Young is our church administrative pastor. I don't think we have any other of the pastoral staff here. And don't blame them, they don't live in Midlothian. One lives in Red Oak and one lives in Waxahachie. So, as we used to say in East Texas, they don't have a dog in this fight. Okay? So, anyway, Clark.
Hello. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'll make sure that worked. For those that don't know me, my name's Clark Wycliffe. I am currently your city councilman and mayor pro tem of the city of Midlothian. A little about me: I was born and raised right here in Midlothian. I'm 4th or 5th generation. My kids will be 6th. I met my wife right here in high school, my senior year of high school, and we got married and have our 2 children, Leland and Channing, who are students in MISD. I have a very deep passion for Midlothian. I think it started when my great-grandfather, he started the Historical Society here and just really bought in. And so as a kid growing up here, and my mother had also served, I was just taught a sense of responsibility that if you're going to live in a community, you don't complain, you get involved. And so that was kind of my thought process. So when I graduated high school, I went to college and here locally at Navarro. And when I was there, I decided to get on the Utility Advisory Board. at 19 because I had nothing better to do. At 19, I started serving on the Utility Advisory Board. I served there for several years. After that, I got promoted to the Parks Board and served on the Parks Board for several years. And then somewhere around the age of 23, I had an argument with a past mayor who we're very good friends with. We had an argument about where Midlothian was headed and what needed to be done. And I said, well, I feel like I can't do that as a board member. I'm going to have to run for city council. And so at 23, I ran for city council and was elected for the first time. And I have enjoyed serving as city councilman. I feel like this is an opportunity to make a real difference, not just in one area, but all aspects of Midlothian. And I also am a business owner here in town. I started my own business 18 months ago. Before that, I worked at my previous job for 10 years. And I'm just really blessed to live in this community. And I look forward to the other questions that will be asked tonight. So thank you all.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pastor Mac, let me say this. You have an excellent lighting system here. My Lord, I feel like singing Walk in the Light. But praise the Lord, everybody. I'm a church kid at heart. My name is Valencia Daniels, and I am running for place for Midlothian City Council. I'm still laughing about these lights, Pastor Mac. Professionally speaking, I do have a bachelor's degree from Liberty University out of Lynchburg, Virginia. Professionally speaking, I have been in lending for well over 20 plus years, and currently speaking, I work for one of the largest banks in the world as one of their vice presidents of syndicated lending. I know some of you are like, what the heck is syndicated lending? And I'm glad you asked so I can just tell you what that is. Basically, what my job function entails is I had a group of 30 people that reported to me, and my group is responsible for every loan that goes out around the world. We're a global lender, and what happens is anytime any corporation around the world gets ready to take out a loan, my group is responsible for that. So we deal in every market, not just USA. I deal in LATAM, which is Latin America. We also deal in the Asian Pacific markets and EMEA, which is also known as the European markets, Middle East, and Africa markets. As I stated, I did have approximately 30 people that reported to me, not only here in Dallas, also in Delaware, and also in Chennai, India. But thank God they hired some more people, so I'm down to 10. As far as my volunteer experience is concerned, I volunteered for a home in California where I'm from, and I'll get to that in a minute because I know some of you guys are like, how did you come to Texas? Well, my job brought me here. But I volunteered at a group home in California called St. Anne's. This is the facility where girls who were pregnant in the foster care system, they had to go there because they wouldn't allow those girls to remain in the standard foster care system, and they were required to basically grow up and raise their children. So I was a volunteer in that program. I was also a volunteer at the 93rd Street Elementary School, as well as here in Midlothian, I volunteer for the MILE program. One of the young ladies who is you're part of that program, aren't you? Or the other program at Heritage High School. She's here. She's been helping us out just as of recently. In addition to that, I volunteer for the Academy 4 program in the city of Grand Prairie, Texas, for another school over there where they teach young people to be leaders. And you can also catch me on some Fridays at the Senior Center where I do play canasta and hand and foot, and I'm just learning about that, okay? I have 2 adult children, ages 31 and 27, 5 grandchildren. I have roots here in the state of Texas. My grandmother was originally, and her 16 siblings were originally from East Texas. They grew up in Marshall, Allegiant Fields, and Jonesville, Texas. She told us she was from Marshall. We found out otherwise. Marshall is down the street from Jonesville. Now, unfortunately, due to circumstances that were happening during that time, during the 30s, 40s, and the 50s, half of her siblings moved to California. This is how I was born in California, because I didn't have a choice of where I was born. But the rest of them, the other 8, remained in the Dallas area and in the East Texas area where they still are now. I feel like I'm babbling, so I'm almost done, and I'm going to pass the mic to Anna. Now, my passion and my drive for wanting to run for city council in Midlothian is a little bit different. I know Clark was born and raised here. The difference between he and I love this man to death, and he'll tell you we communicate, is that I chose to move to Midlothian. I had a choice. I could have went to Grand Prairie. I could have went to Arlington. I could have even went to North Dallas when my job transitioned me here. But when I came to Midlothian and I saw the people and the environment and just the community as a whole, I said, this is where I believe that God was sending me to. So I chose to move into this town. And because I have a love for the city and the people of Midlothian and wanted to give back to my community, which is something that I'm accustomed to doing, that is why I elected to run for city council.
Okay, hello everyone. Dr. Poole, you did a fantastic job introducing us. Like, I wish every kind of professor or whatever you are could just follow us around and do the little intro. That was great. I also, beforehand, was fully expecting him to have a cape on because of the Justice League reference, and I was a little disappointed. But I do want to add clarification just so y'all know how our seats, there's seat 4 and seat 3, so I'm not running against them. So I just want to make sure y'all understand that. So my name is Anna Hammonds. I've been here, and our family's been here about 13 years. My husband, Danny, who's stuck at work right now, he has a fabulous red Viking beard. If you ever see him, he's very handsome. We've been married almost 20 years next month. We have 4 kids, 3 boys, and then the surprise girl at the end. I'm still not sure what to do with her hair. So we have 17, 15, 12, and 10. So we cover a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school. And yes, it is crazy. But they're fantastic. Our family absolutely loves the Lord, and I don't mean like just come to church on Sundays. Like, we are in church, so I'll let you know, like, full blown, like, it is everything that we do. And never did I wake up and go, man, I want to be in politics. Never. But when the Lord speaks to you, you listen. And so my service, I'm the current city council member for Place 3, so I'm wrapping up my 3rd year. And this is what I see as an extension of how I serve my community. I've learned a ton. But being able to have a different lane to where I can serve our citizens in a kingdom way as well is really important to me. So my background is in the social services and the nonprofit sector. Ended up at an early age somehow in the world of consulting with nonprofits. I had no idea what I was doing. But I ended up there, and I had fantastic mentors who just poured into me everything they knew, and at a very young age and very early, I just was like soaking all their knowledge in. It gave me the chance to work with all these different nonprofits and their mission that they were working on. And so I just got this passion for serving and wanting to work with these different organizations. And when we moved here to Midlothian, I realized, man, I'm helping nonprofits and communities all over Texas and DFW and even out of state. But here in Midlothian, I wasn't involved. And the whole point of moving to Midlothian was so you could be in a small community, you can know your people. And so, it was probably about 12 years ago that I was like, I'm gonna get involved in Midlothian. And if you haven't ever done that before, where you had an intentional time of getting involved, let me just tell you, this is a community where, like, oh, you wanna be involved? Let me come meet so-and-so. Let me connect you to so-and-so. And the community just like absorbed me in, and like just the relationships and the connections just began to flourish. And I hope that's the case for everybody that wants to come and get involved. But that took me on to just a long term of volunteering. I now work for an organization, or work with an organization, Unite Ellis. And I want to say, from that perspective, I know about this church. I know that y'all serve the community, and y'all are fantastic to work with. Pastor Mac, Dr. Mac, whatever we're going to decide to go by, has to put up with me all the time. And I don't know if you knew, but I'm his little sister. And I know this church serves, and I thank you for that. But through Unite Ellis, we focus on collaborating across sectors in order to impact our community. So those sectors there are 5 different sectors, and I've been able, not intentionally, but have found myself hitting all 5 lanes. So one is government, business. My husband and I are starting a business that is kingdom focused. That's coming. We're in the middle of that right now. The faith sectors, obviously those are the churches and the faith ministries, nonprofits, and then education. So connecting all of those 5 sectors across the county to work together in whatever way, as you know, when you have a different hat on, no pun intended, but when you have a different hat on for each of those sectors, you view things differently. So I know if I have an education hat on because I serve on the Education Foundation, I'm thinking in terms of our education system, I'm gonna view it differently than if I have my city council hat on. So, or same with, you know, if we're working at this from a church perspective or whatever. So that's where we're at on all that. I always say I love to have fun. I think, no offense, Clark, I think I'm the most fun on our council team right now. These boys, yeah, they're men, but yeah, they're a ton of fun to work with. But we sit in way too many long meetings and boring meetings not to have fun. But at the same time, I'm not a pushover. That's sometimes confused by people, and you know, I don't tolerate bullies. Let's just say so. It's a ton of fun. We can bring joy to everywhere we go. But yeah, I love serving this community. We'll get into more of that in a little bit. But thanks for having me.
Okay, Clark, if you would just take a few minutes and explain what you see as 2 or 3 of the major issues facing the city and what you think the city could do about them.
You're going to limit me to 3? Oh, no. I have a list here, but I'll make sure I get the top 3. There's a lot of things going on in Midlothian, and to just be completely blunt about it, being in a position of politics is being in something where you have to go outside the city to make connections to help the city of Midlothian. One of our biggest issues is service roads. If you've noticed, we're the only city in the county that does not have service roads, and we're averaging about a death a day roughly on 287. The problem that we're having is it's about $386 million to build the service roads, and it's not our road. It's the it's the state and the federal government's road. We have had to learn that we are no longer this small town south of DFW. We've had to emerge into DFW and get in with our congressman and our state legislator and COG, who controls the federal funds. So one of the major problems we're having is trying to get those funds dedicated to us because we're in constant competition with other cities. So we put a planning group together. What we did to address that issue, I'll break them down, but how we addressed that issue is I said, hey, I'll go take that on. And so I work very well with our congressman. We are in constant communication, also with our state legislator and Ted Cruz's office as well. What I've also done besides that is I went and got involved in COG. Our county judge just got appointed to a position on COG, and me and him are very close. And what I have done is I've brought them to Midlothian, or I'll go up to the COG headquarters and I'll show them this is a real issue. And to be honest, we are competing. It is competition. Right now, we were supposed to be slated for the first section of service roads. They just gave it to Ennis. And the second I found out that the COG had decided to give the money to Ennis before the money to the city of Midlothian, I called up our state legislator, or state representative, and I called up our congressman and said, this is a problem we need to meet. And within 3 hours, we had that meeting, and we are now being re-reviewed to get the money first. So first and foremost, service roads and roads in general. I know how to fix our roads. I don't know how to fix the state roads. I just know we got to go get their money. Our roads is a lot simpler. A lot of the roads you see in our city that we actually control, we can pay for them by 3 ways really: a bond, impact fees, or through ad valorem taxes. I do not want to continue to pay for roads through ad valorem taxes that was caused by growth. That's not fair to you as residents. So I know that we have a bunch of money sitting in these impact fee accounts that I want to use to go attack increasing capacity on roadways and not have to use ad valorem tax dollars. When we don't use ad valorem tax dollars, we get to do 2 things: either put them towards another project or lower taxes. And that's what I want to do. I've already ran the math. We have enough money to do 3 years worth of roadway rehab right now, along with increasing roadway capacity. But I think I've beat on roads enough, but that is our number one issue. I would say that there's a larger issue at scale here, and that is our planning and zoning with the state legislator. The issue is and Mr. Poole referenced this, your city council does affect your day-to-day life, but the state legislator is doing everything in its power to remove that. If you go look at some bills that are filed, it is very scary what they're trying to do. And it takes the power away from you, the people, because to be honest, it's easier to get a hold of a city council member, or it should be, or unelect them, than it is a state legislator. It takes way more votes. And so what's going on there is they are trying to continuously pass more and more legislation on what cities can't do. What I've done to counter that is I have gone to Austin. I have connections in Austin. I've sat down with legislators. I've sat down with state senators and told them how this is actually going to affect us. And how it affects y'all is through your tax dollars. One of the things they want to do is allow MUD districts to go on the edge of our community. One of the MUD districts on the edge of our community is going to be 40,000 people, and it's serviced by 663. If anybody's been driving down 663, it cannot support 40,000 people, and that's not our road. We can't touch it. And so one of the things that I've done is I've gone down there and I've talked to them about how this is going to be an issue. Not only as a representative of Midlothian, but these are people I have a personal relationship with, but two, how I've been fighting them on the local level. We have passed resolutions saying we're against them. I have sat down with these developers personally and renegotiated deals with them. But how this affects you is essentially they can go build a neighborhood at the outside of our city limits with 40,000 people, and our police, fire, and roads and park system have to service them. That it costs about 15 cents of your tax dollar, of every tax dollar you pay for just for the fire department. And so one of the things that I've done is I can't stop them from putting it in. That's going to have to be the legislator. But what I have done is said, if you're going to put them in, you're going to pay the 15 cents that everybody else pays in this community for our fire and police response. Because if not, we're going to have to take the increase or the hit on the taxpayer side and increase taxes to 20 cents just for that service. And I'm glad to report that those negotiations have worked out. They've agreed to pay those. Furthermore, to Anna's point, I'm not a pushover. We sued all of them. We're taking them all to court. We've been in court with them, and we're fighting them. This is where my background comes in. I have a background in utility and water when I served on the Utility Advisory Board. I know what it's going to take to put these neighborhoods in, and I have a background in development. I know what they need, and I've made sure that we as the city have not given them the tools they need to be able to do this. The last thing I'll say, and it's an ongoing issue, and I'm going to try to throw two in because they go hand in hand, is our parks and our taxes. I've lowered taxes from 72 cents to 65 cents. I've passed the homestead exemption. This is the highest level we can have by state law. I've passed the senior exemption to make sure no seniors in our community get taxed out. And I've passed the disabled exemption to make sure that no disabled person loses their home because of an accident. But beyond that, we have an issue where as this growth comes, we have got to continue to build our parks. And when you build parks, it costs millions of dollars. One right now we're looking at is the downtown park. I'm confident enough to say I've had enough conversations with people. It's going to be a $10 to $15 million park. I'm pretty confident in that number. And how do we address that? How do we build these parks that we know we need because we've paid for a park plan that tells us that we need them and how far behind we are? We're about 10 parks behind. Anna, I'm kind of looking at you because you were in the same meeting as me, 10 or more. And we need about 200 acres of parkland to catch up. And so one of the things I want to do, again, because it's not fair that the brunt is always on the ad valorem side, we have got to get creative. And so one of the things I've done is said, hey, guys, we're not going to, this is just me. I want to, because Anna's on council too, I want to make sure I'm speaking as an individual councilman and not as a council. But we are going to have to get creative on how to build these. And one of the things I've done is I've went to our sales tax entities and said, you're going to have to pay and build for the new parks. So we can continue to give pay increases to our firefighters and our police officers and our staff and hire more people. And then additionally, on top of that, because I have a background in development, I went to the council along with staff and convinced them to pass an ordinance that says for every new developer that wants to build here, you're going to either pay a fee per house that you build to help us buy, that the money can only go to buy parks, or you're going to dedicate X amount of land to us, the city, for parks. And so it's things like that that I've done to help us try to address the park issue, but there's a very long list of things that need to be addressed, and I think it's going to take people with a background and connections to get it done, but those are just some of the things that I think are our biggest issues and how we can address them.
All right, Valencia. Thank you, Clark.
Same question? Can you repeat it one more time just to make sure that I have it? Repeat the question once again.
Okay, the question is, what are 2 or 3 things that you think are priorities that the city should be looking at, and what are your ideas to solve those problems?
Okay. The 2 or 3 things I actually have, they kind of intertwine together, and these are not just my own personal ideas. I have actually been boots on ground talking to people in different communities, attending some of the HOA meetings just to hear what some of the concerns of the residences are. So my view is going to be a little bit different from that of Clark and Anna, being that I'm not currently on city council. But the 3 things that I primarily keep hearing everyone speak to are the rapid growth within the area, which also leads to safety issues and the tax rate. The second thing is the schools, and then what are we going to do to meet the needs of small businesses? So as far as the rapid growth, safety are concerned, because we are a newer community and we are steadily growing, one of the things that ends up happening with newer communities as you begin to bring more apartment buildings in and people begin to work in the areas is obviously safety becomes a concern at some point. Now, I'll be honest with you about safety. Safety differs depending on what your age bracket is. And what I mean by that, with no offense, is that when I was 10, safety to me simply meant I wanted to make sure I had a bed to sleep in, some food on the table, and a roof over my head. We want to make sure that our children are continued to take care of, but also safety at my age. I'm getting ready to be 51 in a few days. I don't want to come home from anything and someone is standing in my driveway getting ready to rob me or possibly having broken into my home. And then as I'm going into the senior age, to my great aunts who are still in the area, I want them to be able to walk on safe sidewalks on their walkers and different things like that. I was going down not 287, I was going down 14th Street, and there's several sections of 14th Street that there aren't any sidewalks there. And I saw an older person trying to walk down there with a walker. That's just not safe for them. So those are some of the things that I saw. As far as our schools, we want to make sure that those coming along have adequate education. Are they able to learn in a productive environment that's going to benefit them and be conducive to them? And then finally, from a business perspective, are we bringing businesses into our area that are going to be conducive to the area, to us as citizens? Are they going to be productive to us? Am I going to even want to spend my money at these businesses, or do I feel that I still need to go to Mansfield or one of the other neighboring cities to be able to spend my money? And then the other thing is, do we have, and I said this the other night, I think Clark and Anna, you both heard me as well, do we have a diversified, I want to make sure that everyone knows, I said diversified group of businesses, or are we piling the same businesses into one area where you can go to 10 different of the same types of establishments? I don't think that that's a wise decision that we should make, because we need to spread things out and make sure that people are going to want to come to Midlothian. I look over at some of the neighboring cities, such as Red Oak. They have a movie theater. They have, in Waxahachie, they have a bowling alley. Do we have those kinds of businesses here in our community that are going to make our own youth even want to stay here and do things in the community? Those are things that are important. I do understand what Clark was saying about the parks and recreation and things like that. And yes, we do want people to go outside and be safe when walking. The regional park is absolutely gorgeous. But I do ask a question about that. Is there really a need for another community park, or do we look at more infrastructure in the city that may be more conducive to what's going on, not only to us now, but to our future posterity?
Thank you. Okay, Anna?
Okay. I've completely changed what I was going to say because y'all have covered many of my points, so that was good. Y'all did great. So probably one of the top things that people are going to talk about is our growth, right? So Ellis County is the 8th fastest growing county in the nation. And so residential growth, like they're coming whether we, wanted it to or not. And so my thing is how we grow. And so our current council, we've had a couple of retreats on this to really come together and say, you have 7 different opinions maybe on one topic. Like how do we get a vision together? That way staff knows what we're doing, we're all communicating and kind of pushing in the same direction. So one thing we talked about, you had mentioned apartments, like I don't think anybody on council is like, we all want apartments to come in, but we monitor a percentage of multifamily housing of what can come in by right already or what is already on the ground right now, and we're already over that percentage. Okay, so we're not, nobody here is advocating for like mass residential growth. It's coming, and there's already by right and on the ground plenty in the area. So that then brings us to business, industry, commercial, those things that come in and they pump revenue into our system that then can go back into benefiting the citizens that live here. And Clark mentioned like our homestead exemption. So when we're budgeting, we're looking at how do we work this tax rate, not raise it, but then also still provide services. And that was a big thing that I had to pivot in my mind, is the idea of government in the city being a service. Okay, so that could be our senior center or the conference center. Like these are not things that like are required, and these are services that are provided. Same with parks and rec systems and things like that. I value those things because when it comes to community, our mental health, our connections to other people, these are the things that we need to have. You need to have a park to go meet people in. So back to the growth though, if we are focused on industry and commercial, that is one thing that I'm a big advocate for. That goes back into infrastructure. Do we have it? Do we have the sewer line, the gas line, the roads? What are those 18-wheelers doing to our roads coming in and out? Do we want those here? It's a whole thing. I will say in that balance though, is we have to delicately balance property rights versus, what we want to control, and then knowing that we can't control everything. You tell me you don't want any more chicken restaurants, I can't help you. I'm sorry. We cannot say, oh, that's a chicken place, don't want it. We legally cannot say that. So you have property owners who want to sell their land, and then you have developers wanting to come in and buy it. Well, where are we at in the middle of all that? So I can't come out and say, this is the way I'm always going to deal with this, because every situation is different. And so you have to look at every single time that a case is in front of us. How is it impacting us long term? How is it impacting the people around us? How is it impacting traffic? All that kind of stuff. That's what we're looking for. So smart strategic growth in that area is a big deal. I was going to get into roads, but Clark covered roads thoroughly. So the other thing I want to touch on that I'm big on are finishing some of our massive projects that we have going on based off of what the voters wanted. So we just finished City Hall and the library. If you haven't been there, you should go. It's amazing. The library portion of it, it's awesome. We're working on the public safety building, and that's going to be coming online this summer. The voters voted for a rec center, and so we're now in the early conversations of getting that going, and we're on time for all of that. It had to be staggered out, and then roads are within all of that. So these are massive projects to push that forward. Like I'm personally interested in saying, hey voters, we heard you. We're going to do what we said we were going to do, and we're going to get those things online, all while balancing a budget, all in an atmosphere of this was voted on and budgeted years ago, and as you know, construction changes, right? So being able to do it in a certain budget, it's a large project for sure. So those are a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. And then Larry, are we going to go to open comments next, or are we wrapping anything else?
We're going to, again, as I said, if you want to ask a question, please write it out, and one of the members of our Justice League will pick it up. We'll ask to pick those up, and the members of the Justice League will read those questions.
Okay, that'll be good. I'll finish there then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, if you have questions, the members of the Justice League will go and pick those up. Let me amplify a little bit about, one of the big issues is transportation. And as Clark mentioned, the major roads in Midlothian are state and federal highways. And whether it's 663 or 287 or 67 or 1387, those are funded, operated, and controlled by the state. And the city can ask, the city can try to have input, but those state-funded projects, our legislature only meets 140 days every other year, odd numbers years in regular session. And they've got a lot of things that they try to do. But I will tell you what I told my students for over 50 years. When the legislature is in session, no man nor home is safe. And as Clark mentioned, if you're familiar with the bills that they're considering, they're going to emaciate local government. Clark mentioned MUDs. That's a municipal utility district. Those are authorized by the state. They go all the way back to 100 years ago when people lived outside of cities. They had no opportunity to get any kind of city service. So the legislature authorized these sort of local entities to create utility districts to provide water primarily for their community. Developers have seized on that, have taken advantage of that, and the legislature is allowing that. Clark mentioned the one that's going here in the South. I mean, and the legislature doesn't care. If there's 40,000 people going out there and they're going to be going on a 2-lane highway, the legislature could care less because they've got their campaign contributions and they're going along. So a lot of times we want to yell at our city council about 287 or about 663, but realize you need to be yelling at Representative Harrison or State Senator Birdwell or Congressman Easley, or, well, I won't go beyond. But anyway, because, they're the ones that control that. And also one other thing, Clark mentioned impact fees. Impact fees were first adopted by the city of Midlothian in the early 2000s, and they are paid by developers. The city council sets the impact fee rate, and every new house that comes in, the developer pays a fee. And the reason for that is that the citizens that are already here shouldn't have to pay for the additional sewer, water, roads, and everything else that comes from development. So developers have to pay for that. And so those are different sources of revenue.
When we have angry citizens, can we just send them your way? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be great.
I'd be glad to talk to
Okay,
them.
all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I?
Or I'll advise them that they should have taken my government class.
There you go.
Because I did a whole semester. When you teach government in college in Texas, you have to spend a whole semester on state and local government. So you have to be well versed in that. We have gotten a number of questions, and I'm going to pass these out to some of our members of our Justice League, so that I don't want to be asking all the questions. As the people at one church can tell you already, I talk too much. But I do have a couple of questions, and I'm going to roll them in together, and they are for each candidate to respond to. And it has to do with, what is your stance on diversity and inclusion, and what are your plans for promoting racial and economic equity in the city? What is your stance on diversity and inclusion, and what are your plans for promoting racial and economic equity in the city?
I'll go
So
first.
whichever you want to take that first.
Okay, I was trying to give it, help Clark here. So that topic that you find in your schools. On our side, it's really, I will say obviously I want things diversified, I want things represented, we need all opinions at the table. When it comes to on council, our role, we've hired and fired 4 positions. After that, that's going to be down in HR and so forth. So me personally, I'm for all of that, but it would be very inappropriate for me to go to HR and say, like, this is what we need, you need to hire all of that. So I would want to narrow that question down into what specifically are we talking about, how are we seeing that play out in government, things like that. It's a kind of a different conversation on the school board side. So I'm a big believer in steering, not rowing. As council, we set direction. We're supposed to be steering. We're not getting in those weeds. So there's a fine line on all of that. Can I add after y'all? I might jump back in if y'all after y'all.
So I'm trying to tread lightly on this, but I'm just going to jump in here right now. So my stance on diversity and inclusion, I'll be honest with you, I believe that you need a diversified panel of people within the community to make decisions. The reason why I stand on that is because if every last one of us looks alike, sounds alike, and we are alike, then there's a problem. I think that's why God gave us something called a mind to be able to think and to project. And so I am for diversity and inclusion. I don't think that everyone should be the same sitting in the room because we need some different people. My sister just walked in a minute ago, and I don't mean to pick on you, Michelle, but she has red hair. But I said all that because she's the only one in the building that can rock the red hair, in my opinion. But you need different people so that you have a different perspective, a different view, a different take on things. If everybody has the same perspective, take on everything, then that's just a boring picture that we're looking at. You need diversity and inclusion in the world. And my plans for economic inclusion is, as I told you in my opening statement, I deal with everyone around the world. Every day in my life, I have to reach out across to my partners whom 9 times out of 10 are not in the USA, and I have to shake hands with them and say, hey, what can we do better to effect change where I am or where you are, or to make your lives easier or better? So I simply believe that economic inclusion and including various opinions and tactics to do different things are vital to the existence of all of us sitting in this room. I can't do it without my brothers and sisters to my left and to my right. I can't affect change without either one of them. It's gonna take all of us. The ironic thing about all of this, I honestly believe this, and I'm taking this back to church, Dr. Mack, if you don't mind. The Bible says that one plants, one waters, but at the end of the day, it's God that gives the increase. You don't know what part in that particular place you're gonna be. You don't know if you're gonna be the planter or you're gonna be the waterer. But at the end, we know that whatever we come together and do, and as long as we're incorporating Christ in that, he's the one that's gonna get the increase. So that's my stance on it. I'm gonna pass it to Clark.
I got something else. Can I do one more? Yeah.
I thought you were going after Clark. Anna's jumping too fast. Get back on the side.
Yeah, I volunteered to go first, and then I didn't work through all my thoughts there. Do you want to go ahead and go, or I will? Okay. Well, my only thing. So I agree with everything you say, but when it comes to me being in the seat and what I can actually do about it, that's where I'm going. It's like this is great, but what do we actually do? And I thought of one area that we can actually help with this, and that's our city boards and committees. So we have applicants all the time, so we need people to apply, and we actually have a wait list, and then every year it rotates on our nominating committee of who's putting the applicants on which of our city boards, and those city boards play tremendous roles. So that is one area that I know that our current council has been very good about, and we need to do better, and we can be doing better, but it's also based off of who's applied. You can only do so much with the list that you have. And that's not just, it's all factors like race, age, but like your background, your expertise, all of that. There's a whole lot that goes into it. And then, of according to what board you're sitting on. So that's one area that I know that we affect that.
And we're gonna let Clark. We're
Clark,
gonna let you jump in. We
you're
got
not
you.
even gonna get a message.
Ladies
Okay.
first.
Yeah.
I was just going to piggyback on something that Anna said. I think oftentimes, especially if you moved from one community to another or just in general, I don't think people really know a lot about what goes on within the community, meaning the various boards, the various, city council meetings, different things like that. And so my only thing I'm not refuting you, Anna, but I'm just adding to what you said. I think that if we are the leaders within the community, then sometimes the leaders have to not just sit behind the dais, but you have to get out there and be boots on ground and talk to people and tell people, hey, you know what? This is what we have. We have these services for the community. Maybe you should come over here. Why don't you look at joining this board or that board or, different things like that, because everybody is oftentimes, let's be honest, most of the people don't even come to city council meeting. There's a very few that come. But if I think the people who are the key holders to the city are out there and talking to people and shaking hands with people and letting them know, hey, it's okay, come on over here, we can help you. You just don't know. That may be the very thing or the push that some people need. I have 2 kids. God forgive me for saying this. One of them is lazy as heck. That one I have to push. My other one is a go-getter. He's up there. He's out there. He's going to do everything. But, there's just different people. And some people you have to kind of push and nudge in or even grab them by the hand and carry them along until they get it. So that's the only thing I was going to say to that. Clark, it's all on you.
I think one of the areas, and Anna and Ms. Daniels hit on, is our boards. Anna and I were the council members who just selected this last group. I will tell you, she says we have a waiting list. That's now. Prior to this, when I was first elected, we had to beg them to please apply. Because to get different perspectives, we have to have different people get involved, but I can't force anyone to get involved. And so I agree with Ms. Daniels too. I coach my daughter's soccer team. I was involved in FFA growing up, so I was at the expo this week. I go to all these different things when I'm out in the community or these business luncheons or the chamber, and that's one thing I do is I try to go out and find somebody. You seem very well qualified, or you seem to have a different perspective than me. I want you to serve, and I agree. I don't like anybody that necessarily agrees with me. I like debate. I want you to tell me why you're correct or I'm wrong, because you may sway my decision. And so I think that's what we can do is to continue to try to get people to join boards. We need to create more opportunity on our boards now that we do have a waiting list. Beyond that, I believe you talked about transparency and getting the word out. I agree with that. I think people need to know what's going on in their community. I was on council when we passed recording all of our meetings, and if you thought that was a simple vote, it was not. People did not want that televised, and I got raked over the coals for that one at the time, but that was my thing is, hey, we need transparent government, but we also need to tell people how to get involved. When I was first selected, I will say, I tell this to everybody, Midlothian's in its teenage years, and we're trying to figure out who we want to be when we grow up. When I was first selected, me and the current mayor, Justin at the time, we didn't have a PR person. We didn't have a marketing person. It was me, him, and the average age of the city council when I first got on was about 62. Nothing against those guys. They were all great people, but they didn't do Facebook. But it was constantly me and Justin out there trying to promote things because the city didn't have a central base of information. And so we went out and we finally, 3 years in, we hired a marketer and a PR person to try to push out, to try to get people involved. How can we get people to show up and get different opinions, because we don't always want the same. I will say we do have stakeholder meetings, and we do have where if we're going to go into an area or do certain thing, we'll get business owners to show up, or we'll try to advertise for certain neighborhoods to show up if it affects their neighborhood. But the truth is, I feel like we've done more than ever, and we continue to need to strive for more, but I can't handcuff people and make them come. And that's been our biggest issue, is trying to get people to actually show up. And how can we, and I don't know this, I'm humble enough to admit it, I don't know the answer, but how do we get people to want to be involved, and I think we need to continually work on that.
So this one actually is for you, Clark, so you get some more spotlight time here. You stated that number 3 on your list is parks and taxes. The downtown park is $15 million, and we are behind on parks and recreation. However, many of our parks and equipment are outdated and unkept. Why not put those funds first towards improving existing parks before building new parks?
That's a great question. And I agree with you. The playground by my office that my son plays on, there's actually a picture of me playing on it when I was 3. It's the same exact playground. And just for y'all to know, that's Kimmel Park. That's probably our oldest park in the entire system. So to that point, I actually have a plan. That's a great question. So the 10 to 15 million, let's just call it 15. I like to work on worst case and tell everybody we saved money. If it's truly $15 million, our A and B boards, 1, collect about $1.5 million a quarter, and 2, have over $10 million in the bank. And that doesn't include what they can borrow. What money they borrow is leveraged against sales tax, not your ad valorem tax dollars. So what I want to do is fund the downtown master park using our A and B corps. They can either borrow the money or pay cash. We have both. The city gets a lot better interest rate than we do because they get bond rates. It's about 3 to 4%. And then 2, for that, that's actually why I'm trying to loosen up some of the general fund money, is to go do this park rehab. We're actually redesigning Ridgeway Park right now, which is off of Walter Stevens. And so we're working on that, and that we have some money set aside. But that's also why I went to the council and said we need to. 2 years ago, I did 2 things. I made us increase our impact fees from 2% to 3% because I thought it was too cheap for developers, and also because developers were hitting our water and sewer lines and then turning over neighborhoods and we haven't paid for it. But 2, I wanted them to implement the park fee because we can do whatever we want with that money once it comes in, as long as it goes towards parks. So we've started that. We have some money. I want to use that money with the general fund money to go redo the park equipment. But I think what holds us up the most, when I hate to say we're doing a lot more than people can see, because it's true, you don't really see, but we actually are in the process of upgrading all the park equipment. But we don't go out and just buy a brand new park equipment. We actually hire somebody to come in and look at, like, hey, can we fit pickleball? We try to add more. Like Ridgeview, we're trying to fit pickleball. We're trying to put in a walking, biking trail, and a brand new playground equipment. It's not, hey, let's just go slap up a new playground equipment. How can we make this the best park for the money we have? And so those are the ways I'm planning on addressing that. That's the funding I plan on using to address that. And I think I answered the question, but if I didn't, you can ask again.
Can I add to that, though, too? Because I think it's very important. I agree with everything Clark just said. Our parks team, they have a parks master plan. And in that's where, when Clark was talking about identifying, like, that we're behind in parks, they literally take the equation of, like, how many people, how much land coverage, standards of, like, how much green space or park area that you have, and it'll show where we're at in that. We are way behind. It is harder to get a new park online than to maintain. So, which obviously is why the question, why are we not maintaining? So the parks team also has a maintenance schedule that goes, like, year over year, that they're going to rotate around the current parks. And then on top of that, like he was saying, our A and B corporation, so that's your sales tax dollars that come in. You split some of that. Some of it goes. We have some that goes to A, some that goes to B, and then they can utilize that money. So Ridgeview Park, and there was 2 other parks on the list for the B corporation that they're, like, completely revamping those. JC, they're doing JC right now. So it's going on that it may seem like, well, this playground's still here. The other thing I would add is if there's a specific thing that you're like, this has been sitting here for forever, come talk to us. That's where we need the feedback. And if you ever want to try to get input on that B corporation, the ones that how they're spending their money, one of your newest board members is sitting right over there, so you can go complain to him too. But yeah, it's a whole schedule that goes into it. But getting a new one online, getting land acquisition, all that kind of stuff, that's a whole different type of project too. So.
The next question addresses the issue of safety. What is the current staffing of the police department? Do you believe that this is sufficient, and how will we fund additional officers as the city grows?
Are we back in order? That's fine. Yeah, so when I was first elected to Midlothian, we were not ranked one of the 50 safest cities in the state, and we are. To that point, when Uvalde happened, I walked into the council chambers and said, guys, I don't care about the politics, and trust me, there was politics, and there was a lot more debate around this subject than you would imagine. But I said, we need to figure out how to put up a police officer in every school. I don't care what it costs. We'll cut some budgets. And that's what we did. Is the school came to us and said, look, we can't afford to put a police officer in every school because we don't have the money. And I said, how much is it? They said $500,000. And for those that don't know, the school pays for the school resource officers about 60% of their pay throughout the year. So I ran the math and I said, okay, y'all are going to get a police officer in every school, it's going to take 3 years at 2 officers per year. We're going to front $500,000 and go ahead and hire them. And we're going to pay year 1. Year 2, you're going to take 2 officers off our list, and now we're going down to, I think it was like 380. Year 2 comes out, or year 3 comes out, it goes down to 100,000. So basically, it was a payment program to the school. I'm very proud of what we've done. We have the #1 school resource officer program in the state now, and hopefully going again this year. We also voted #1 national eye out for our police department. But when it comes to policing specifically, that's kind of a hard question to answer because I'm going to say we have about 120 employees, but understand that when we talk about the police department, that falls under 3 things. One, we run the 911 call center for several cities, not just Midlothian, and those count as police staff. And 2, so does our animal shelter falls under the police department as well. So, you know, employees versus sworn officers, I think we have about 60, and that includes the SROs. We have a process where the police chief comes to us every year and says, this is how many police officers I need, and we've never cut that. Last year it was 5. We hired all 5 and then some. Every year, and this, what I'm about to say, don't get mad at the city manager, it's his role in our charter to bring us a balanced budget. This is not because he has anything against police or fire, but we get a balanced budget from our city manager, and he says this is the things the departments need. And every year it will cut out certain employees in every department. And then we can see what the ask was. What did he cut out? And he's cut out things in police and fire every year because he has to. We have to balance the budget. And every year we've added them back in. We said we will figure out, we will take the hit on parks, and we'll figure out how to move some money from sales tax. We will figure out how to move money around to make sure we have public safety taken care of. Also, we have the #1 ISO rating, which is a rating for the fire department. That actually lowered your insurance cost. So I'm a big proponent to police and fire, though. About 10 people I graduated high school with actually work for the departments, and I sneak in there all the time. I walked into the fire department 3 Fridays ago and brought them dinner, and I walked in and they said, Clark, our ventilation system's not working. They said they don't have the money. We have to pull the trucks out of the bays to run them, and it's just not very effective. And I walked in on Monday, said, guys, here's an issue. It's about a $10,000 fix. We're a $45 million budget city. I'm sure we can have 10 grand laying around somewhere. And it was fixed that week. So I'm a big proponent of police and fire. I believe we need to keep adding. And I'll stop after this, but just a statistic, because I was on council when we had the what we thought was an active shooter in the high school. We had over 400 police officers on scene. Midlothian has more police officers living in its city limits per capita than any other city around. But they aren't all of our officers. They're just officers from other departments that live here. And so I'm a big proponent of keeping Midlothian a safe place. I want people to be safe. And I'm willing to give in areas when it comes to budgeting other than public safety. That's a non-negotiable for me. So.
And the other entity that we service is Ovilla.
Yeah,
Ovilla. Mm-hmm.
Your question, sorry.
We're sorry. We're trying to get it together up here. The other thing that I wanted to add to that is, along with Clark, I'm a big, big, big proponent of safety, because safety is it always has to be number one, right? What I do love about our police department, I just had lunch a couple of weeks ago with Chief Smith, and he was just talking about how the crime rate is relatively low here in the city of Midlothian. I also went out on a ride along with one of the police officers in the area, and they were telling me how one of the main concerns at this juncture in time is mostly the mental health of individuals. They don't see a lot of violent crimes in the area. We don't have all the things that a lot of the other cities have, but it's mostly the mental health of the individuals when they get dispatched to calls, and the training of those officers so that they know how to handle someone who's going through a mental health crisis versus someone that's actually in the act of committing a crime. And I thought that was actually commendable, that they have trained pretty much all of their officers to identify when a person is under a mental health duress, as opposed to being reactive and, going out there and doing something that may cost them in the future. We do have also our victim services advocate, who advocates for any victim that has any issues that have been I'm sorry, I'm thinking faster than I'm speaking. Our victim services advocate, who is there to advocate for the victims in some of the crimes that have been committed. And I thought that was good that that was added on. I think that was back in 2019. Yeah, 2019. That was another service that was added to the police department. But again, I'm with Clark on that. I do not believe that we should sacrifice the safety of our citizens for anyone.
Hey, Anna, I just want to give two statistics real quick. This isn't why you should vote for me. This is just statistics you should know as citizens. Our number one issue in drug stop is possession of marijuana, and our number one call on our police department is domestic violence. Those are the two biggest calls we get out on our police department and fire department.
Just a couple of things to add. They've covered a lot of ground. The new public safety building that I mentioned, which is coming online off of 67, coming online this summer, will greatly increase efficiencies. And I didn't realize until really digging into how that building is set up, like how a physical building and a new building and all the processes and procedures, how much it impacts all of that. So that's a really cool thing going on. As far as capital is concerned, another thing, fire station number 4 is being discussed now, and I think we're not in engineering, we're in the early stages. We just paid for engineering on that, and we have the land for that, so that's coming on as well. And then the only other thing I'll add to Clark's, I totally agree with the budget. If fire or police come with anything, even though our poor city manager has to wrestle with us on all of this, there's always that line. There's a column that will say, here's what they asked for, and here's what the city manager put in the budget that's in front of you. And I'm pretty sure we all go, okay, what did they ask for that is not getting? And most of the time, I feel like they get most of everything that they asked for. But our directors over those areas, our 2 chiefs, they have strategic plans that lay out things like everything from personnel, how they're keeping up with staffing based off of our growth of our community, but even the capital expenses of cars, equipment, like there's a lot to keep up with on all of that. So it's a multi-year, they're planning way down the line, and we're just trying to keep our pace with all of that. So yeah. What else?
Thank you. Switching gears here just a little bit. This one is relative to our youth. How would you support after-school and recreational programs for the youth?
Just in general? Okay, no, that's fine. Well, it's interesting because when I grew up here, it was still a lot of farm fields, so we used to just go fishing and do different stuff like that. My neighborhood is actually one of the places we used to go fishing at. I think my house was built on the pond. No, I'm just kidding. But to me, it's interesting because we literally either went fishing or we hung out at Whataburger, and I know as a child who grew up here, like this is not what we should all be doing. We should have stuff for our youth. One of the things, and I think it's actually a neat idea, it's not tailored towards high school age, but the Lawson Development kind of has this play space coming online. 2, though, that's the reason why I was a big proponent on getting community park finished, is me and my friends used to love to play basketball, and you can't get into the school facilities to play. And so community park phase 2 had sports activities that kids could go do after. But the biggest thing I think we need to hurry up and get online for children's youth is the rec center. the council went out and toured a bunch of different YMCA's, but me and the mayor actually sat down and loosely talked about terms of what it would take. It's going to take about $24 million to build the rec center. The citizens approved 19. Obviously, there's a gap there. So essentially what we've worked out and the council's about to vote on is letting the YMCA pay for the additional between the 19 and the 24 million. And in return, we will still own the building. They will get to operate the rec center for several years. We haven't locked that down yet on how many years, but after that, the city can either continue the relationship or we can take over and run the rec center. One of the other things I was a part of that we got online for the youth, and it's actually being used a ton, is we revitalized our old gym. It was about $400,000 to $500,000 to get that back online. But to be honest, besides just what the city can do there, I'm a big proponent and we didn't have the funds before. 2019 Midlothian to 2024 Midlothian, or 2025, gosh, new year, is completely different on funding. And now we finally have the money to do things that we didn't in the past. And so I've been trying to push our B corporations our A corporations in helping out in economic areas for small businesses. So if somebody wanted to do something like an after school program, helping funding that. We didn't have the funds to do it before, but we do now, and we're actually looking into those. Or if somebody has a startup business they want to do for something like that. And so I believe we could help out through our permitting process, making it a little more streamlined, funding them with our economic development, and then lastly, our part on trying to get this rec center online, which I really think, and Anna, you can quote me if I'm wrong, I think we'll have our contracts and handshaking and signing of deals done in the next 6 to 8 months. So hopefully sometime in 26, you'll start seeing construction of that.
And unlike Clark, where I grew up, we were latchkey kids. Some of you guys are laughing. I know you guys remember that, where you basically had the key, you went home and you sat down and you didn't let anybody in. And if you did, you pretty much almost got all of your teeth knocked out or your tonsils pulled out because you let somebody in that wasn't supposed to be in the house. However, when my kids came along, they went to the Boys and Girls Club and to the YMCA. And they did that not only after school because I was a working parent and my husband was working at the time as well, but because it also gave them structure, meaning until we got off of work. They went there, they had social activities, they had homework help, and it kind of lifted the burden on us. So I'm a big, huge advocate of any type of after-school program, Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCAs, and I'm even an advocate for summer programs too, because I found that that's when we got in the most trouble in the summertime, when we were just left to our own demise and our parents went to work and we were in there doing pretty much whatever we wanted to do, running the house or burning up stuff, just things like that. But I feel another thing about my background that I didn't mention to you guys is for a segment of my life, because I had gotten out of loans, I worked for the probation department in LA County. What I found while working for that probation department is that kids need structure. Without structure, you are going to have a kid that is out there pretty much running wild and doing whatever they wanted to do. And I've told my brother this before. One of the saddest cases that I had working for the probation department, I was in what they called the gang unit in California, was one kid decided that he was going to do something to commit a crime only to be transported back to juvenile hall. And I thought to myself, what is going through your head that you thought it was better to come back here as opposed to, staying outside, and he didn't have a family or anybody to guide him and give him structure. So that's why I stand on the premise that kids need structure. They have to have something to occupy their busy minds and to keep them out of trouble. So I'm for rec centers, I'm for the Boys and Girls Clubs, I'm for YMCA clubs. Anything that we can do to try to steer our kids and provide positive role models for them to ensure that they have the tools that they need to succeed. And don't get me wrong, I know parenting starts at home, but when kids leave home, there's a whole nother world out there that they can potentially get into trouble in. So we need to make sure that they're guided every step of the way.
A couple of things to add to what they're saying. This is why our Parks and Rec system is so important, not only to give the physical space for people to go and hang out with and teens and all of that, but also the rec side of it. Our parks team, they handle all the rec leagues and the sports. And man, if y'all ever want to have a fun day, come and work with all these rec systems and figure out who gets field access. It's a lot. So the city works with with all these leagues to use our park systems in order to give them access to all of that. And then that's where you see sales tax dollars coming into play, because we might be put like we had mentioned earlier, JC Park for our baseball fields, they just laser leveled, or they're laser leveling the infields right now. So the maintenance of all of that, how we're helping those rec leagues stay up to date and so forth. So those are a couple other things. The other area that I've seen this, because again, like I said, for economic development, there are times that, in big areas that you can work with big companies to bring in certain things. But on the the everyday, I mean, that's not how everything's functioning. The rest of it, we're not controlling, again, the use, the actual end user there, okay? So, but for an example of the big times that this happens, the Lowe's development going in across from Walmart, that is a situation where economic development got involved, and there's 2 phases to that. And the second phase, once economic development came in and said, okay, we'll help you in certain ways, but you've got to make phase 2 a certain percentage of entertainment. So that's going to be something like a movie theater. It's not determined. I haven't heard if it's signed or anything yet, but so that's sometimes ways that we can help that, but those are big, big projects. And the rest of the time, we just have to focus on how we can help small businesses come in and provide activities and different things that kids can go do other than hanging out at Whataburger.
Yeah. Well, just know, this is just a statistic. We've had 5 entertainment facilities look at Midlothian since I've been on council. And one of them was massive, like a massive water park. This is just a fact I like people to learn what goes on in the city. This isn't about any of us up here, but the biggest pushback we get back is, why don't you have a movie theater? Why this? Every time they tell us it's population. Every single time. They say we don't have the population to support that type of business yet.
It's chicken or the egg. They need to have the rooftops to come here, but yet everybody doesn't want all the rooftops, but you want the recreation. So it's a hard, they're counting all that for sure. How we best? I guess my first question would be, what needs are different than all the citizens? If there's an example of that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how racially and ethnically diverse Midlothian has become, and how do we best meet their needs?
Well, can I start off?
Sure.
So, my thoughts is that it's a good thing. I think I kind of spoke to that earlier when I said that if everybody in the room looks the same, then that's just not good. You need different people with different perspectives from different walks of life. I mean, come on, y'all. That's what makes the world go round if we think about it, right? Because if everybody is thinking the same and doing the same, that's kind of boring. It's like we need that. We need different ethnicities. You need different people to make Midlothian continue to stay strong. And you don't want it to seem like no one group of people, I don't care, and this is not about race at this point. I want you all to hear that. You don't want any one group of people to feel as though they are being excluded in any way, shape, form, or fashion, period. We've had enough of that in times gone past. It is 2025. Stop the foolishness now, okay? I mean, I'm not saying that like that, but I mean, like, you know, we should all be at a point where, okay, look, we can all agree in this room, we can agree to disagree. I may not agree with Anna says today or what Clark says, but guess what? I don't agree with it, but we have to come to a medium somewhere, and we have to be able to walk into the sunlight and say, okay, we got it. We got this over here. We should be, what I want to see is Midlothian become that pillar where we're up and we're like, look, all of us, we got this. We get along. We may not, I have a sister, I have a brother. We don't always agree on everything, but that doesn't mean that we're not family and I'm not going to love them. I may not like them at the minute, you know, for a brief second. You know what I mean? A brief second. I may not like you, but at the end of the day, we are all still one. And our common goal is to make sure, number one, that the needs of this community are met and are being met, not just for us, because at the end of the day, I just said this earlier, 2020 something, we're all going to be out of here. I mean, it's going to be on all of our gravestones because we're not going to make it past 2020 something. But we need to make sure that our future generation is taken care of.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think that question ties into this last question here. And the last question is, what programs and opportunities exist in city government to support the residents? So I think the first question that they asked kind of tied into the latter one. And the example they gave was entrepreneurial support.
Okay, I'm going to stop and I'll let these two.
Okay.
I think I still remember the first question. Well, maybe I don't. Can you ask one more time? Sorry, that was a lot to digest there. I was listening to
What
Ms.
are your
Daniels.
thoughts on how racially and ethnically diverse Midlothian has become, and how do we best meet their needs?
So I'm going to just say, because I know everyone's got this new school, old school Midlothian thing going on, and as somebody who's from here, like, there are the old school Midlothians that aren't happy about the growth. To me, there's actually an old school Midlothian Facebook page. They actually all got on to me one day because I said this. I said, I don't know why all of y'all are so mad all these people are moving here. You sold the real estate. I love it. But that's you know, that to me, is there a part of me, as anybody would in the community they grew up in, that still wished Midlothian was 10,000 people? Sure. No joke, I drove my tractor to high school. I'm serious. You could ask the guys I went to school with. I mean, there's a part of that you lose when you grow, but that's okay. I'm happy for Midlothian. I'm happy that people love this community as much as I love this community. All I want at the end of the day for Midlothian is to be the pillar of Ellis County. We are the safest, the cleanest, the healthiest, the most connected. And I think, and from a political standpoint, because I am very immersed in politics, trust me, we are. You see all of us being friendly up here, that is not how the other cities operate. It is bad. And I think that's what sets us apart. You know, me and Ms. Daniels have talked more than these forums. I've called her. She's reached out to me. And I think that to that question, that's what we're doing. We're being neighborly. We're learning how to love one another. We can disagree. I disagree with the council member I currently serve with. Anna and me disagreed last week. We could still go have dinner. We could still go have dinner together and be friends, you know. And I think it's a mindset of how we could do that. And then and there's a bunch of different communities. This one's just kind of a passion for me. My brother's a quadriplegic. He's in a wheelchair. He had a diving accident. And then a guy who lives here in town, his name is Chris Dobbitz, was actually in a biking accident, was hurt before my brother, taught him how to live as a quadriplegic because he also is one. But to those two, and Chris rides his wheelchair throughout downtown all the time if you ever see him, like just speaking specifically to that group of people, like we've got to figure out a way to fund more connectivity and trails for handicapped people, especially in the downtown area. It is a nightmare. You know, luckily for my brother, he has me and his 20-year-old son. We could pick him up and move him around, but we got to figure out how to do that. And I mean, I think we know how we're going to do it. We've been engineering it. We have the funds to it, but we got to continue to make Midlothian to a point where everybody can enjoy it. And I know I'm probably rambling too, but it sounds cliche. It sounds like a political answer, but truthfully, this is my heart. Like, I want nothing but the best for Midlothian. I want us to be that pillar of Ellis County. I want us to be the safest, the healthiest, the friendliest. I love everybody. I've yet to meet a person I dislike. Now, I might dislike them for 5 minutes, like she said. I might go get in my car and say, man, but I simmer down, I cool. And I think that's how we as a community, and that's why I like all the events we do, is because it forces us to get out. It forces us to meet our neighbors. It forces us to learn how to get along with one another. And I think we need to keep doing things like that.
Okay, if I'm remembering the questions, how do I feel about the growth in diversity? Awesome. I don't know how else to answer that. Like, yeah, I would never be against that. If we're talking growth in general, that's a whole another thing. But as far as the people that are here, and I wouldn't want any services that weren't that were segmented. I don't understand that part of the question, because I'm looking at it as like we need to serve people, and what can we do that from a government entity, and that is where it gets a little bit difficult. We've talked a ton about Parks and Rec. That's for sure one area that we do that. Also through our sales tax dollars, that's where we're able to look at some of the services, some of the things that we can do there. But there's some legal stuff going on where where our hands are tied in a little bit of areas there. When you start using general fund taxes, like people's taxes, there's going to be a lot of opinions on where that kind of stuff goes. So we've got to be careful there. This is also where I find it very important. I kind of mentioned this at the beginning. This is why we need to be linked and have good partnerships with our churches and with our social services and our education systems. We all need to be working hand in hand to go who's doing what. I don't want to duplicate efforts. We don't need to work within silos. So if we can help make sure we're here to identify the needs and make sure that someone's meeting them. Again, there's only certain things that we can do, but like rec centers and things like that where we're using bond money or whatnot, that's going to be a type of service that we can get involved in. But then as leaders, we need to be able to say, oh, okay, this is a need. Have you gone and talked to the Heights in Midlothian? Oh, there's domestic violence going on. We need to go over there and talk to them. Oh, there's mental health going on. We need to go over there. We got to know. That's where you have to keep the pulse on the community, so we can know what the needs are and know how to resource them. Am I covering all that question?
Yeah, and then the other question I was posing also was, what programs and opportunities currently exist in city government to support residents? And the example given was entrepreneurial support.
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurial. So through some of our A and B funding, again, that's our sales tax dollars. There's going to be small business support.
Okay.
Training of entrepreneurs. I mean, there's education series like our economic development partners with our chamber to put on business before business, different classes like that. It's not going to be like the mile at the high school, or at MISD, that kind of stuff. But there's different ways that in the economic development world that we're partnering with others to be able to bring up businesses. Also partnering with TSDC and Navarro for job training, bringing people online, moving them up, and then also having the relationships with big industries. Hey, where are you needing people? Oh, electricians and our trades and things like that. Those are the big areas that we need to get more people in. So they're partnering with those communities. That's what I'm thinking of so far.
So how do residents find out who to contact and where to access these resources?
Yeah, I mean,
It's online.
yeah. So I always would say what are we talking about specifically? Like what the need is. Which I know you don't have. Like I don't know. No, I mean like if I were talking to someone in the community, I would say like what are we talking about, and then let's delegate it. That's another reason I'm big on like you need leaders that are out in the community that have relationships. You run into them at lunch. They're at events. That way we're all approachable. My cell number is right here on my cards. Like you ask and get connected in those ways, and then making sure we're on the PR side that we're promoting it. Other thoughts? Did I leave anything out on services?
I don't even know where we're going anymore. I think we're just out here.
So another question was, and I know Valencia spoke to this earlier when she talked about no sidewalks on 14th Street. What measures would you take to ensure the safety and security of residents? And Clark also spoke about, hiring more police officers and RSOs on every campus and things of that nature. But
Safety and security overall for the residents.
what measures would you take, to ensure?
So, but the first part wasn't specifically sidewalks, was it?
No. It's
okay.
just a general question, but that was one of the
Oh,
examples
okay.
she gave earlier.
Okay. I think it's one, being involved in the community and figuring out what those areas are, but two, getting feedback from the community. So 14th Street's a prime example. We have the 8-foot sidewalk running the whole distance from Dove Creek to the football stadium, well, really into downtown. And someone was like, hey, those cars are going 50 miles an hour, and that sidewalk gets really close, kind of right before you get community where it curves, and it's dangerous because it curves. If someone's not paying attention, they'll run over it. So one of the things, that was a citizen that brought us that to our attention. We're currently building a rail right there right now. to a guardrail right there, right now, to make sure people are safe when they walk. But I think to address safety concerns, one, listening to our experts, which is our police and fire chief, but two, just being involved. The Chris Dobbitts, the guy I brought up earlier, he's the one that sent me a picture of the sidewalk and said, "Hey, it's broke here. This is a problem." Or when my kids are 6 and 7, we go to the parks all the time. If I see something wrong, I'll send a picture to the parks department and say, "Hey, this is broken." And I think that's just and it takes all of us. I mean, to be able to make this thing function the way it's going to, because at the end of the day, and Nana can correct me if I'm wrong, I think if you took our entire city employees, all of them, I think there's 400, almost 400, and we're 65 square miles, and we can't see everything. And so, and just by the way, we have less staff than every other city our size. We are very, very lean city. Most cities our size have about 600 employees, and that's through all departments. So we run very lean in Midlothian. But again, to answer the question, I think it takes all of us being involved to help figure out what areas we need to be a part of.
Okay, one last question. How much debt is the city of Midlothian in?
So the most recent, I served on bond committees before I was elected. I was on the 2015 bond committee and the 2019 bond committee. This is a loaded question, and I want to take a moment here because I don't want to just answer the question as a candidate. Like, I truly want people to understand how our government functions. So we have several ways we fund the city: utilities and what you pay for your water and sewer, and then what you pay in taxes. Those are completely different buckets, and they both have their own debt. So that's why it's kind of a loaded question, because if we add them together, that's a different number than just what you borrow against on your ad valorem side. We have somewhere around $300 million in debt. The last bond was for $129 million. There's a video, if you ever go look at, what was Matt's podcast? Matt Morris. He has a podcast called Life in Midlothian, where I ran for city council years ago. This is the answer I gave him. It's how I believe it today. My original thought on how we were going to lower taxes and make it sustainable for the citizens is every time we pay off a debt, our tax rate automatically decreases, because your taxes are broken up into two. 30 cents goes to debt, 30 cents, and I'm rounding, but 30 cents goes to maintenance and operation for a total of 60 cents. As we pay off debt, that goes down. My original thought when I first got elected is we're going to continue to pay off debt and drop taxes. And then, I mean, to be honest, the citizens kept approving more debt. So I was like, well, now we got to do a different approach here. So we are probably about to go out for another bond for roads and Fire Station 4. We've kind of built, I've asked the city manager this question, if we could build anything, just throw the budget out the window. If there's something the city needs right now, what do we need to build? And he goes, honestly, Clark, we're good. We need roads and we need Fire Station 4, because we're building the rec center, we built the library, we built the public safety. But to that point, the city council can approve debt on their own. We typically don't do that. And then if you include our utility fund side debt, that's about $180 million. Now that debt is only tied towards water and sewer. It is not tied to anything else. It's all it could be used for is expanding the water plant. What's neat about this, and this is where my background came in when I served on utility advisory, is we just did like an $80 million water plant expansion. And when I got in 19, I knew water was going to be king and this was going to be a problem. So I got the council in a budget cycle and I said, we need to go buy all the water we can financially afford to buy in our utility fund. We didn't use tax dollars. We used water monies that you pay when your water bill. We went out and bought as much water as we could afford and as much water as our plant could clean in a day. Then we went to the surrounding, if anybody lives on Mountain Peak Water, that's one of them, Sardis Water and Rocket Water and the City of Venus all buy water from us. We went out and bought all this water, then we turned around and sold it to them, not the rights. We still own the rights. We sell them water monthly. What that does, and currently is still doing, is paying off all of our debt. it's most of our debt, probably on the utility side, about 60 to 70% of it is paid through our contracts that we went out and got with these other cities when we bought this water. Which, what that means to you is we've been able to, I know everyone says their water bill's high. If I break it down for you, because it's all lumped into one, water and sewer is actually cheap compared to what most people pay. We've been able to keep it low because we've been selling this water to these other entities and making them pay for our improvements. And here's the cool part, and this is why I wanted to do it. We know there's going to be a water issue in DFW by 2050. This is a fact. I serve on the COG board when we were looking over this. Water is going to be scarce in Texas by 2050. So what's neat is we went out and built our plant up as big as we could, and we're still expanding more, and we bought as much water as we could. All these contracts come up every 5 years, and so as we need more water, we roll back. That's why you never see Midlothian put out a water notice. Now, you might get a water notice if you live in Midlothian and have Mountain Peak water, but if you have City of Midlothian water, you don't get water notices because we're water rich, to be honest with you. And we're going to continue to drop how much water we sell these entities to make sure our citizens are taken care of first.
So did that answer the question on how much debt? I just wanted to make sure. Okay. No. I was going to add just a little bit to, or actually, Clark, I guess maybe this is where I should ask you a question right now. I know this kind of flipped a little bit. So from what you just said, and I want to make sure that I'm clear on this too, are you saying that the debt that was accrued by the city was because of the bonds that were approved? 80%. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear in hearing that, because I know I've been looking up stuff, and that's...
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to add, and man, y'all just saw Clark get into his like nerd zone with this. Like he loves this stuff.
No, I just wanted to make sure we were clear, just for the purposes of that question to whomever asked it, so that they know that this is how much the city is in debt, and the reason for the debt is this, and this, so that they would understand, because obviously this is going to come around again when we have to vote on bonds.
Right.
So I want to make sure that the people are educated on the purpose behind bonds and what happens when there's a bond in place, so that you know what you're voting for next time.
Yeah, the other thing I want to add to that is the way things are set up at the state level literally require us to carry debt. So things are set up. Clark, I want you to hear this to make sure y'all stop. No. I was saying that the state requires us to carry debt in the way that things are set up. So our hands are tied on some things, and then our bond debt is rolling too. So when something's coming off, it's gonna change up your tax rate if you're not filling it. But then if it goes down, you can only raise the tax rate by so much without going out to the voters. So there's this whole game that you play with the debt, to where you gotta keep a certain, like balancing keeping a certain amount, balancing your days on reserve in our fund balance, and so forth. So it's a really complex. Talk to Dr. Poole afterwards, and he'll probably tell you
Actually,
more about it.
if you'll let me, I'll try to answer it.
Okay.
Well, my question is, we know that Midlothian is the cement capital of the world, right? Are there any initiatives to reduce the city's carbon footprint and to enhance our clean quality of air?
So, little backstory there. When the cement plants were brought online, it's kind of funny because our family ranch was right next to one of them, and I remember the EPA coming out during the Bush administration and setting up towers and doing air quality samples because people were worried there was two-headed cows running around. That was a real thing. So what we've done, and I'll be completely honest with you, we are in the phase of the ending of the life of these cement plants. They're not going to tell you that. It's not what people are going to say. They have their quarries have certain lives. Now, when I say that, I'm talking not in the sense of our lifetimes, but they're in the fourth quarter. These cement plants are going to be going away in the future, and that's something that I've been wanting the city to look at, is when this plant is no longer here, what is it going to be? I want to make the quarries lakes and have our own water system. That's just me. But what we've done to that, I'll tell you, we've worked with the plants. They do a great job themselves just because they're so mitigated by the EPA. But I will tell you, from what we've done as a council, we've told our economic developer, if you're going out to get businesses, if they're not clean businesses, we don't want them here. We don't want dirty manufacturing. Keep it out of Midlothian. We already have the ones that are here. They were approved in the 60s and 70s. What we have done, though, is Midlothian Breathe, which is a start. I didn't mean to take the wind out of your sails, Anna. It's a group of citizens. We've worked with them in the past. They have set up air monitoring systems throughout the city to monitor this, and they have a Facebook page they share it on. One of the things, and I'm glad we're talking about this. I need to reach out to them because one of the things they want to do a couple years ago was put the levels on the city's website. That was back before we had a marketer. We didn't. This is a real thing. Nobody knew who ran the city website when I first got elected. I mean, it was so. That's all changing. So working with them on like letting that be a placeholder on our website so people can see. But as far as initiatives, that's been the council's biggest thing is if it's not a clean manufacturing job, we don't want it here. And they can go to a different city.
Glad you didn't name a city. The other thing, adding to the Midlothian Breathe group, and I'm not going to get all the words right, so they work with TCQ in order to monitor all that. There's big air monitors, and then they also, that Midlothian Breathe group gets purple monitors, like this is the kind of monitor you could have in your backyard. And so they keep all of those like connected. And our air quality passes. I mean, it's not, it looks worse than what it is with all that steam and smoke going out. But yeah, they were going to be the group I was going to bring up to. What else?
Do any of the other members of the league have questions? You've been given? Let me just point out what Clark brought up and Anna brought up and Valencia brought up is that we can increase the diversity in the city government by people volunteering to serve on boards and commissions. I served on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 19 straight years, 17 as chair, because nobody else wanted to serve. And I'm glad we've got a waiting list. But if you live in Midlothian and you would like to get involved in city government, volunteer for the P&Z, the Park Board, the other boards. And there's a process that the council goes through to appoint those people. And I urge these candidates and council members and the entire council to, when they look at those candidates, to take into account, diversity, not just racially or ethnically, but socioeconomically, other demographics, so we can have that diverse point of view. And on the environmental issue, there's relatively little the city can do other than through zoning. And the cement plants are already here, and they can't undo them. But the danger is, once again, in Austin, because there are bills in the legislature to restrict the zoning capacity of cities. And if some of those bills pass, some of those dirty industries can come here. So, keep an eye on, contact your representative, your state senator, keep your watch. There are websites you could go on, the Legislative Watch, to see what's being proposed. But there are a number of bills in the legislature right now stripping local communities from their ability to prevent those kind of industries from coming in. And so keep aware of that. We're going to give each candidate, let's take about 3 minutes, closing statement, and then I'll close. And we're going to go in reverse order. So Clark, you're going to go last, and Anna's going to go first, and of course Veronica's number 2 either way we go.
Okay, I think one thing that I haven't touched on so far that I do want to close out with this is high-level leadership to me matters. That's everything in how we conduct ourselves, how we get along with others. Clark mentioned how we're disagreeing without being disagreeable. that is a big thing. In being present in the community, being relational, that is a big thing for me. So just to keep it short, I have my little cards here. Like I said, my cell number's on there. It's like I want people to reach out to me. We need people out in the community, maintaining relationships, treating each other kindly, and being connected to the community. So that's me, and come see me afterwards and I'll answer any other questions. But I really appreciate y'all taking the time to do this, and for the Justice League with your capes, that you put all the effort into doing this. It's really cool that you've done this. Thank you.
First of all, I want to say to the One Church, also, as Anna had already stated, thank you so much. Doctor, thank you so much. First Lady, thank you so much. This forum was much needed, and I do appreciate it, because it gives the people a chance to see who we are, that we are real humans and normal people. We say, hey, how you doing? We're normal. One of the things that I had mentioned when I started off in this forum was that I loved this community and still do love this community. And for me, I stated this before and I will say it again 100 more times. Community comes from within you. How are you treating your neighbors? I said this in the last forum, and these two know. Jesus said in his commandments that we are to love our neighbors as ourselves. And if I can't treat you right and you're my neighbor, then I have no place in anything else. So I firmly, firmly, firmly believe that as a community, it is our job, it is our duty, it is the commandment of Christ that we have to love one another. All I have to do is pick up a phone and say, hey, how are you doing? If I'm in the grocery store, it's not going to hurt me to say, hi, how are you? Smile at you. That doesn't hurt. That doesn't cost me anything. You're not asking me to buy you anything. But that's part of us being community and maintaining that same hometown feel and value, just to show some concern one towards another.
Again, thank you for letting me speak in the questions that were asked tonight. What I said earlier, again, it's genuine. All I want is for the best for Midlothian. And if that's somebody else that's running, or that's me, that's all I care about. This is my hometown. This is where I'm invested. This is where I chose to raise my children, where I opened my business. And to be honest, and I tell everybody this, because it was the way I was raised, is I'm not going anywhere. If I don't win, you'll see me in the historical society or somewhere else. And if I do, then that's great. I hope Miss Daniel stays involved as well, because we need people involved. I'm sorry, this is my spelling.
I'm not going anywhere either.
Yeah, we need people. We need people. I'm begging. This is me begging. We need people involved. But again, all I want for Midlothian is a place everyone's proud to call home. A place that we all feel safe to raise our families and can financially afford to live. And I think Midlothian's at a point with a lot going on. You told me to give you 3 earlier. I wrote down about 20 issues. And I think right now, the reason why I want to continue to serve is I am the second most senior councilman with experience, and I think that we need somebody in there with the experience and the connections to keep us going and to get these issues fixed. And so again, I want to thank everybody for just letting us answer the questions. And me and her are gonna be friends by the end of this. We're gonna be best friends by anyways. If y'all didn't know, we actually live in the same neighborhood.
We live blocks from each other.
Yeah. So no, I appreciate Miss Daniels and all her answers, and no matter how this goes, I hope everybody stays involved or gets involved, because we truly need people to get involved in local government. So thank you for tonight.
Thank these candidates very much. I think whatever the outcome, any of these 3 will serve us well. And we're very, very blessed. And I appreciate all of you for being here, the questions that were asked, and I appreciate the candidates and their demeanor and their presentation. These are all good people. But you got to vote. And you got to get your neighbors to vote. Everybody you know, vote. You know, I'm eagerly awaiting the day when a local election has a higher turnout than a presidential election. And it ought to. It ought to. Again, we thank all of you for being here. Dr. Mack, do you want to say anything? I hate to pass up an opportunity without giving my pastor a chance to speak.
To all of you, to our guests, can we give God thanks for them again for coming out? Greatly appreciate you all accepting our invitation to come. I know Clark well. I know Anna even better. She's my little sister, so y'all be kind to Anna. Clark has served our community well, so thank you, sir, for your service for our community all these years. And to Valencia, I've had an opportunity to sit down and chat with her. Thank you so much for filling the movement to come and stand and come and be a part of what we're doing here in Midlothian. As a Midlothian resident, of Midlothian, I'm grateful for you stepping up to the plate to want to come be a part, and for all of you for your service you've done over the years. I've had the experience to actually work with Anna, doing so many things around the city and the county, so I believe in all of you, and may God's grace continue to rest upon you. And so to all of you who are citizens of Midlothian, I partner with Pastor Poole in reminding us it is our responsibility to know who we're voting for and know who we're not voting for. You have the responsibility to go to the polls. We challenge you to do that. We'll have another one church day at the polls where our church member will show up, takes every single one. I'm just here only for your spiritual soul, which we are. But also, you can up with those on your life center. As you're living in this side, think about why not here. You have a part to play. So I celebrate you for Pastor Poole to putting this together, to making sure that our church continues to stay aware of what's going on and happening to candidates. Tell you, everybody do this. So I'm grateful that we live in a city where we have a church for us to bring civilians out around us. Have a market. Your local government is your voice. All right? So learn from the city council process. Cannot do. I'm so grateful. We didn't have any, since we're not recording any numbers and trying to push a different agenda than what we're doing here at the church, this demonstration state. All right, so I thank you for one church for the candidates, and I look forward to forget about food based cookies. Have a good food size. Yes, thank you so much. All right.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you being here. Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the opportunity we have this evening to hear these candidates. Lord, the passion that Valencia and Anna have to serve. Lord, it is now a vision of your spirit and your command to serve and to love one another. Lord, we're thankful that you blessed us with candidates that have that attitude. And Lord, now we pray that your spirit touch each one of us. Consider the candidates, make thoughtful, intelligent decisions, and then, Lord, we ask for blessings on our community. Lord, you have blessed us in so many ways already, but you did bless us. And Lord, we pray and we give thanks not only to those who earn this service, but those who will serve. And Lord, you will guide them, protect them, you will watch over them. Lord, we give you all the honor, all the glory, and all the praise. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen and amen.